The scorching August sun of Colorado in 2018 brought with it not just heat, but a chilling premonition of tragedy. Nothing seemed to foreshadow the horror that would soon engulf the cozy Watts home in Frederick. At first glance, Chris and Shanann Watts embodied the American dream. Chris, tall, broad-shouldered, with seemingly kind eyes, worked for the oil company Anadarko Petroleum. His salary allowed them to live in a spacious house surrounded by a meticulously kept lawn, and to indulge his wife's numerous hobbies and interests. Shanann, energetic, charismatic, a mother to two adorable daughters, 3-year-old Bella and 1-year-old Celeste. She was the life of the party, an avid social media user, turning their lives into a public display of happiness. Every photo, every video posted on Facebook screamed idyllic bliss, family trips, themed birthday cakes, games with their daughters, tender words about her beloved husband. My rock, my best friend, my backbone. That's how Shanann described Chris. From the outside, it appeared this family lived the very American dream many only saw on magazine covers, striving for it but rarely achieving it. But beneath this flawless exterior, as if hidden by a carefully chosen Instagram filter, festered a dark, decaying truth. The cracks in the perfect facade were barely visible, yet they deepened relentlessly until they became an abyss, swallowing 3 innocent lives. The disappearance, the first alarms. Monday, August 13th, 2018. Shanann was supposed to return from a business trip to Arizona late Sunday night. Her friend and colleague, Nicole Atkinson, was scheduled to drop her off at home from the airport. That night, Nicole became the first witness to the unfolding catastrophe. She dropped Shanann off at the house around 1:48 a.m. Shanann had promised to call her in the morning when she went to her doctor's appointment, but the call never came. Nicole, a woman with keen intuition and a sharp sense of unease, immediately felt something was wrong. Shanann never missed doctor's appointments, especially since she was pregnant with their 3rd child. Calls to Shanann's phone went unanswered. This was so uncharacteristic of her that Nicole began to panic. She drove to the Watts home, but the door was locked and no one answered the doorbell. She saw Shanann's car, a white Lexus, parked in the garage, which meant Shanann was home, or should have been. Nicole immediately called the police. When officers arrived, Chris Watts was also present. He claimed he had left for work early that morning before Shanann and the girls woke up and knew nothing of their disappearance. He feigned concern, but his words, his demeanor, his strange detachment immediately struck the seasoned police officers. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle. Shanann's purse, her phone, her keys, even the medications vital for her and the children's health, lay inside the house. Everything was there, except Shanann herself, Bella, and Celeste. This was not an escape. This was a disappearance. Chris Watts, a web of lies. The police launched an investigation. The initial theory, a possible abduction, but with no signs of forced entry, seemed highly dubious. Suspicion immediately fell on Chris. His behavior was unnatural. On the officers' body cam footage as they searched the house, Chris appeared almost indifferent, even when speaking about his missing wife and children. His voice was level, without a hint of anguish. His eyes seemed to dart around the room, avoiding direct contact. He spun a story about Shanann saying she was going to visit a friend, but it rang hollow. When Chris gave interviews to local news channels, his carefully chosen phrases sounded like a rehearsed script. I just want them home. I miss them. If someone has them, please bring them back. These words were meant to evoke sympathy, but instead created a jarring dissonance with his cold, almost empty gaze. There wasn't a single tear, not a single genuine display of grief. Detectives watching him saw not a distraught husband, but a man meticulously playing a role. They began to dig deeper. They examined surveillance footage from neighbors' cameras, checked call and message logs on Chris and Shanann's phones. And that's when Chris's web of lies began to unravel. A double life, the hidden depths. Detectives discovered that Chris Watts was living a double life. His affair with a colleague, Nicole Kessinger, was no longer just a fling, but a serious relationship, of which Shanann was unaware. Chris's messages to Nicole revealed a shocking truth. He assured her that he was in the process of divorcing, that his children lived with their mother in North Carolina, and that he was free and ready to start a new life with her. These messages were direct evidence of his intentions and his deceit. He wanted to get rid of his family. Shanann, for her part, had begun to suspect something. She had recently returned from a trip during which she tried to mend things with Chris. She sensed his detachment, his coldness. Their texts made it clear she was fighting to save her marriage, struggling for her family, while Chris had long since made up his mind. Their relationship was on the brink of collapse, but Shanann, blinded by love and hope, continued to believe in the perfect picture. During interrogation, when detectives presented Chris with irrefutable evidence of his infidelity, the facade he had so carefully constructed began to crumble. He still tried to resist, putting forth absurd theories that Shanann had suffocated the girls, and he, in a fit of rage, had killed her. It was an attempt to shift blame, to evade responsibility for his monstrous deeds. But the detectives were not amateurs. They saw through his lies. The confession, the horrifying truth. Under the relentless pressure of questions, contradictions in his statements, and undeniable evidence, Chris broke. It wasn't a sudden remorse or a surge of conscience. It was a confession, forced, cold, almost mechanical, just like his earlier deceptive statements. On that fateful night after returning from Arizona, Shanann discovered Chris's messages with Nicole Kessinger. They fought, loudly, desperately. She accused him of infidelity. In response, Chris, tired of obligations and dreaming of a new, free life, did the unthinkable. He strangled his wife. Right there, in the bedroom where they had shared a bed, where their children were born. But the horror didn't end there. As he dragged Shanann's body downstairs, Bella and Celeste woke up. They might have seen or heard something. Perhaps they simply woke up at their mother's call. What happened next was an act of unimaginable cruelty and cold blood. Chris put his daughter's bodies in the car along with Shanann's. He drove for several hours to a remote Anadarko petroleum oil site where he worked. The location was desolate, uninhabited. There, under the cover of darkness, he committed a second, even more monstrous act. So that the girls wouldn't suffer and wouldn't be witnesses, as he cynically stated later, he suffocated them, one by one. 3-year-old Bella and 1-year-old Celeste. His own children, just meters from where their mother lay. He buried Shanann's body in a shallow grave nearby. For his daughters, he chose an even more elaborate hiding place. He hid their tiny bodies inside oil tanks. The iron tanks, filled with viscous crude oil, were meant to be the perfect concealment. He hoped that this way the bodies would be harder to find, and their disappearance would be attributed to an accident or a runaway. His calculation was that time and the substances would do their job, dissolving all traces. Shock and aftermath. The price of freedom. When the details of the crime became known, America was aghast. This story, which initially seemed like a tragic missing persons case, turned into a nightmare. The image of the perfect family that Shanann had so carefully crafted on social media collapsed, revealing a monstrous truth. Society couldn't comprehend. How could a man who seemed like such a kind, loving father and husband commit such barbarity? Psychologists, criminologists, and ordinary people tried to find explanations. Many spoke of Chris's narcissism, his selfishness, his desire to start a new life, free from the burden of a wife and children. He wanted absolute freedom, without considering the price he would have to pay. News reports relentlessly played footage from Shanann's social media, where she spoke lovingly of Chris, of their future plans, of the joy of motherhood. And beside it, Chris's cold, detached face in the courtroom, a man who destroyed everything he held dear for the illusion of freedom. It didn't take long for the jury to reach a verdict. The evidence, the confession, his own behavior, all pointed to his guilt. Chris Watts was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His dream of freedom turned into eternal confinement. He destroyed not only his own life, but also the lives of those who loved and trusted him. Epilogue. Memory and warning. The story of the Watts family became one of the most chilling and instructive examples of how a seemingly perfect external image can conceal a monster behind a facade of smiles and decency. It's a tragic reminder that evil doesn't always wear the mask of an obvious villain. It can live among us in what seems to be the safest place, within the family. It can hide behind a meticulously crafted persona until the moment the facade collapses, revealing unimaginable horror. And each time Shanann, Bella, and Celeste's names are remembered, it will serve as a grim warning. Be vigilant. Evil can dwell where it is least expected,